It's been almost 4 days since Gold Star parents Kaiser and Ghazala Khan took the stage at the Democratic National Convention to speak about the loss of their son, and their public battle with Donald Trump is reaching a crescendo. Of course, it all started with these lines delivered Thursday night.
You have sacrificed nothing and no one. Let me ask you, have you even read the United States Constitution? I will gladly lend you my copy.
Trump fired back during an interview with George Stephanopoulos on ABC.
Who wrote that? Did Hillary's scriptwriters write it? I think I made a lot of sacrifices. I worked very, very hard. I've created thousands and thousands of jobs. His wife, if you look at his wife, she was standing there. She had nothing to say. Maybe she wasn't allowed to have anything to say. You tell me, but plenty of people have written that.
Ghazala Khan crafted an op-ed in response, calling Donald Trump ignorant about Islam and saying he doesn't know what the word sacrifice means. The Khans have also made multiple media appearances in the days since, both ramping up their critiques, but also saying they want to move on.
This person is totally incapable of empathy. He is a black soul. There was no need to comment the way he commented. That initiated this conversation. We want to be out of this controversy. We don't want.
Trump responded via tweet this morning saying, Mr. Khan, who does not know me, viciously attacked me from the stage of the DNC and is now all over TV doing the same. Nice. Nice indeed. Joining me now to talk about all this are Lila Alphonse, managing editor of news for U.S. News and World Report. Great to meet you in person, Lila.
Yeah, nice to be here. Thank you.
Jim Rappaport, former chair of the Mass Republican Party, who served as a Kasich delegate at the convention. Jim, good to see you, too. He's currently director of New Boston Fund. We're also joined by Ruth Bolzer. She's a Democratic state rep from Newton, who was a Clinton delegate in Philadelphia. It's very good to see you, Representative, as well.
Nice
so the assumption, Jim, coming out of the two conventions, Trump versus Clinton, Clinton versus Trump, 4 days ago this happened, and it's all Khans and Trump all the time. Does this in any way help the Trump candidacy or help the Republican Party?
It does not help Trump, clearly, and he made a huge mistake. I mean, the fact of the matter is that their family is exactly the kind of family that those of us who have problems with Islamic extremists believe are role models. They have been hugely supportive of this country. He put his son in the military. The father, or the gentleman who was speaking, has in fact been speaking out about Islamic extremism, which is rare in the Muslim community.
So this is going to damage him. I mean, even his vice presidential candidate, you saw the Facebook post, Mike Pence saying, Donald Trump and I believe that Captain Humayun Khan is he died in 2004 in Iraq, hero, and his family, like all Gold Star families, should be cherished by every American. That's a little bit of recreation of history.
And so did McConnell, and so did Ryan, and so do I. I mean,
are you now a Trump supporter?
I am a John Kasich supporter at the convention. I am definitely not a Hillary supporter, and I have not decided yet how I'm voting.
Okay, so he won't argue for it. The only case I can see is Donald Trump's MO seems to be anytime you're talking about Donald Trump and not talking about Hillary Clinton is a good thing. And now, while to normal people this might be a disaster, all we've talked about since the speech Thursday night is Trump, 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 and the cons.
He's often said all press is good press.
Yeah.
So that definitely fits his usual way of operating. Keep in mind, though, he's also constantly playing to his base. And right now, the people who are most enthusiastic about him are the ones who see people like the Khans as suspects, not citizens.
I think that's a wonderful point.
I think that's a gross overstatement.
Why do you say that?
Because I know a lot of people who are Trump supporters who believe his statements around about protecting this country are appropriate.
Wait, he said John McCain's not a hero. I like those who aren't.
Do you want me to go through the whole litany?
But did that hurt his campaign?
No.
Okay, so maybe that underscores her point.
I think he makes a good point about needing to protect the country, and that's something that I think a lot of people would argue that the left has become too lax about saying. But this particular time, this particular place, was not the time or place to make that point.
Let's let the representative settle it. Who's right? I mean, I know obviously the Clinton people are quite happy about this whole mess, but doesn't Lila make a point?
I would just say that every time we think Donald Trump has gone as low as someone can go in terms of offensiveness and crudeness, and as the father just said, the lack of empathy, he goes even lower. there seems to be no limit to his lack of empathy and his need to offend one
gonna hurt him in this
person after
campaign?
another. We have yet to see. I think what's going to hurt him is Hillary Clinton's extraordinary abilities, and she will
Well,
persuade
witness
you.
the fact that the-
Before you mock Hillary Clinton's extraordinary abilities, let me just, since we mentioned hurting him, let's talk about some post-convention polls. There's one, the LA Times Daily Tracking poll, which still has Donald Trump up even after the convention by 4 points. CBS, though, a pretty significant bump, 5 or 6 points for her. It was tied the other day. She's up 6 in one poll. When you bring Gary Johnson, the Libertarian, in, the lead is reduced to 5. You wanted to say something?
Yeah, I mean, the fact of the matter is that Hillary Clinton is on Fox News Channel with Wallace, who is Chris Wallace, and basically lies about the emails and what Comey said about them. Again, I mean, she can't help herself.
Hillary Clinton is not lying. The FBI has made it very clear no criminal activity was done. Hillary Clinton had a practice similar to other senators and so forth. The important thing is not some errors that she made, but her extraordinary abilities. This is a woman.
But her representation, if I can, even though there's clear that Comey said there was no crime committed,
Right.
her representation with Wallace yesterday, that Comey, the FBI director, was confirming that all her statements were truthful, is simply not truthful.
Well,
there were numerous conflicts between what she told the FBI and what she told the public in March, no? Yes, well, we're going to say that.
I was going to say.
I didn't see. I've been so busy at the legislature
okay.
session.
Right.
I
I was
missed
going to
the
say
interview.
that keep in mind that he said no criminal activity took place, but he also only barely skated around using the words gross negligence. I mean, he was very clear that mistakes were made, if you want to call them mistakes. He was very clear that...
Extremely careless.
Right, exactly. And that's not a legal term, but it's still one that came up. So if you're talking about criminality, I think you have one discussion. If you're talking about whether she would do the same thing again, I think you end up with
We
a
have
different
another
about
discussion if we talk about the issues, the
Absolutely.
real issues that affect the American
Well, let's talk.
people.
Can we talk about
We
one
can.
issue? If
How
we
about
may?
1.2%
in a relevant
gross
situation?
domestic product?
Hold just 1 second, if you can.
GDP growth.
Hillary Clinton dealt with a fairly similar situation to what Trump dealt with the cons at the Republican convention. It's gotten far less press. It started when Patricia Smith, also a Gold Star mother, whose son was killed in Benghazi, when she spoke. Listen.
We lost sons, brothers, fathers, and husbands. We lost 4 brave Americans who made the ultimate sacrifice for the country they chose to serve, and the American people lost the truth. I blame Hillary Clinton personally for the death of my son.
I would argue a far more serious charge than that leveled by the cons against Trump, but here's how Clinton responded during the interview that Jim was mentioning about on Fox News yesterday with Chris Wallace.
My heart goes out to both of them. Losing a child under any circumstances, especially in this case, I understand the grief and the incredible sense of loss that can motivate that. As other members of families who lost loved ones have said, that's not what they heard. I don't hold any ill feeling for someone who, in that moment, may not fully recall everything that was or wasn't said.
Clearly far more grace than Donald Trump showed in dealing with the cons. However, while Congress may be done with this, are the American people done with Benghazi, particularly the constituency Lila's talking about, Representative?
I think when the Republican Party nominates someone as incompetent as Donald Trump, they are going to try very hard to focus on some of these issues, which I think otherwise the American people will move on from. What was important to me was the stark difference between these two conventions. You had a Democratic convention that was all about celebrating basic American values of inclusiveness, of equality, of freedom, and you had a Republican nominee who is about hate and bigotry.
But the other thing you also didn't describe, virtually every establishment Democrat was at the Democratic convention, virtually no establishment Republicans, which frankly fits the path that Trump is trying to create in his campaign. Those are all the insiders. I have all the people. I mean, doesn't that fit his whole
There
shtick?
weren't just insiders at the Democratic convention. I mean,
No, I'm talking about virtually every major Democratic figure. I'm not disparaging.
Yes, our
I'm just
party
saying,
is unifying, and we also had people who weren't Democrats. We had Michael Bloomberg making a wonderful pitch to
he was
why independence.
one of the most powerful speeches.
I agree.
I'm going to ask you to do something irresponsible before you go, if you don't mind, since we're whatever. Let's just do it. Can we do psychoanalysis of Trump here just for a second going down the line, even though none of us really are capable of doing
Well,
it
I'm
well.
a clinical psychologist.
Oh, you
actually.
are? Well, let's start with you. When he gives answers like he gave on this Khan thing, is this conscious? He's made a conscious decision to appeal to the base that Lila talked about, or can he simply not help himself?
Well, actually, I think it's probably both. I think Khan gives a very good diagnosis. The lack of empathy is a really important, the lack of a conscience, the lack of a
But does
moral-
he know when he says, I've made sacrifices too, I've created all these jobs, I've built all these buildings? I mean,
think he
the
believes
average
it.
person would know that's not comparable to the loss of a son who's decided to give his life for his country.
We also know that he spent some time before he sought this presidency testing messaging, and he's a master at staying on the
by the way,
Did you
messages.
take psychology
by the way,
101 or you didn't?
A long time ago. By the way,
fine,
the Clintons
go.
have never done messaging polling at all, considering that Bill Clinton did it every day since he started in
Can Donald
1996.
I
Trump
didn't
help
say they
himself?
You know what? I met his kids, and I have to believe, and they are really solid citizens. I mean, it's not art. You know what you saw.
I'm not asking about the kids.
I'm going
They
to tell
seem
you.
wonderful.
It means that he
They
can't.
also have mothers.
He can't.
That's a good point.
Yeah, but he can't.
Thankfully.
I think that there is some of this that is an act that is playing. That's kind of and.
Was the Khan thing an act?
I think that was a mistake.
Lila, you can finish it off.
I think he does a lot of this stuff automatically. He spent so much time in front of the cameras, so much time playing to an audience, different audiences, not just politically, that finding the message that resonates and then going back to it is almost second nature. So was it a mistake? I would agree that if he had to think it through, that wouldn't be the statement he made. Could he help it? I think he said it before he could even think
He's
of
a
anything
TV
else.
personality. He
Lila,
knows how to
thank
do
you
it.
so much.
My
It's good to
pleasure.
see you.
Take care.
Jim,
Thanks for
good to
having
see
me
you
again.
as well. Representative,
Thanks,
great
Jim.
to see you as well.